Okay, so this is for project 2. The goal of this project specifically was to kind of test my ambiance making abilities. I ended up kind of going for a very like surreal dream-like experience, which is why specifically I ended up kind of going for a very like there's no distance, there's no landscape in the distance. I wanted it to feel very claustrophobic despite it being kind of natural looking. I will admit I kind of messed with the sky, which is why it's so unbelievably bright. And then the texture I used for the ground, which is actually a downloadable texture included in my included in the kind of engine that I ended up using. So it's called Horror Engine. It's free on Unreal. I used it specifically so that I could have like meshes and specific functions that I could use to kind of mess around with. So like the lights in particular are like from, I believe, the Horror engine anyway, but it was suggested by a lot of the tutorials I ended up using and kind of building my stuff off of. So I guess I'll play through it and kind of just explain. As you can hear, I wanted it to feel very unusual. So like the sky is black, but you can see these lights are kind of coming on and off and they're floating in the center of everything. So you start walking through. As you can hear, there are footsteps. That is actually involved with the game mechanics of the Horror Engine, but I did have to go through and kind of adjust them slightly. They can change between, so like the sound can change depending on which element you're walking on. So they have grass and dirt and a bunch of other things. And as you can see, there's this light that's cut in half by this block just in the center of everything. So once you go through, you're in a room. And there's a lot of these lights that are going on and off. If I could edit this, I would probably adjust the frequency at which each light is different. I think I would change the ratios up. And then you get to this door. And that's kind of the end of it. Again, it's only supposed to be 8 hours. I started from scratch. I had another level that initially I was kind of planning on doing. But I really wanted it. What is that in the distance? Oh, it's the atmosphere. Sorry. Just freaked myself out. But yeah, I know it's not entirely horror right now. I'm still working on it, clearly. But the goal was to create something that felt threatening in general. I think if anything, I would just turn down the loudness of the sound. And then there are 2 separate sounds that are actually running through. So I'll run through them. One is the light flicker, and then the other one is the, it's like Faslayan Studios, whatever. So I ended up going through and making a flicker cue. Let's see if I can bring it up. Right, so this is one of them, which is the one I downloaded personally, and then there was one from our tutorial back in way back in like week 4 or whatever, that I ended up using for the second one, and that one is the one that crossfades with each other, so it is just kind of by distance, so which one you go with is kind of random. But yeah, I would probably fix this just a little bit if I had a little more time, just to make it a little less frequent, because it does kind of feel overwhelming, but hey, maybe that's part of the goal. I did purposefully, just so that you guys know, I did purposely leave the background blank. I did want it to feel like you were waking up in this sequence. Again, some of this stuff, as in game mechanics, so like included with the Horror Engine, I can tilt this side and I can tilt with E using this, which makes for a little bit of an interesting wiggly feeling to it. Now, admittedly, if I had a little more than 8 hours, which a lot of this was spent kind of figuring out this engine and then working through what I wanted the layout to be, because I can be very finicky. Sorry, that's overwhelming to listen to. But I think if anything, I would just try to turn the brightness down. That's kind of the one thing that I was really frustrated with. Sky mechanics were always kind of set to be very specific, and I ended up wiping all that out when I used this engine, because it just created kind of a blank slate for you to build off of. But yeah, and then I'll go through the flickering light blueprint. I edited it slightly, but that is kind of the blueprint that I really wanted to work on. I wanted them to feel a little less infrequent, so they each have a different flicker setting. So each one has a different max, and It basically runs at a different speed, and then the sound is different. But yeah, so it's pretty similar to the tutorial, and a lot of the tutorials that I end up watching are not blueprint involved so much as they are involved with actually learning the the engine. But it was super easy to install. It was really nice to work with. I ended up having a lot of fun learning kind of environments and ambiance stuff. I wanted to keep it as simple as possible because I really wanted it to just feel jarring, which I feel like has kind of been captured, which is lucky. But yeah, I really wanted it to feel kind of weirdly strange, and if anyone's seen The Ritual, that's kind of what I was going off of. But yeah, so I think I'm going to leave it there just so that I'm not running on too long. But yeah, that's my project too.